Coming to paperback and e-readers, ISIS Legacy. The sorority secrets from the goddess next door are revealed in this all-new ISIS series adventure. Pre-order your copy of ISIS Legacy on Amazon.com today. Kenosha shooter Kyle Rittenhouse says he's going to be suing celebrities like Lebron James and Whoopi Goldberg and media outlets for slander and libel. Now, this campaign by your Kyle Rittenhouse is supposed to be designed to try to get him financial compensation for alleged slander and libel. But when I take a critical examination of Kyle Rittenhouse's attempts to try to sue celebrities and media outlets, it looks like a desperate attempt to try to get the last few seconds of the 15 minutes of fame he got back in 2020 when he participated in the riots in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Now, what your Kyle Rittenhouse is doing is no different than George Zimmerman, the murderer of Trayvon Martin. Once George Zimmerman stopped being a media darling to far-right types and white supremacists, he started to see that his finances were going back to being in the red like they were before he murdered Trayvon Martin. And in order to continue receiving attention in the mainstream media and to continue to keep getting money flowing into his pockets, what your George Zimmerman went out here and did was he started filing lawsuits in an effort to try to get attention for himself. Now, most of those cases wound up getting dismissed in civil court, where the standard of law is that cases are based on preponderance of the evidence, and I believe that many of the cases as related to Kyle Rittenhouse's lawsuits will be dismissed based on the preponderance of the evidence. Because under our United States Constitution, we have the concept of free speech, and under the concept of free speech, people have a right to express their opinions in any form of media. Now, in order to prove slander or libel, you have to prove how somebody's statements have marred your reputation, and I don't believe your Kyle Rittenhouse can prove that anybody's statements marred his reputation. Basically, this 18-year-old, as I see it, marred his own reputation by participating in actions that were not something that were appropriate for a child his age at the time to participate in. And as a result of him going out here and participating in those actions, he had to deal with the consequences of those actions. This is a basic concept called cause and effect, and sadly, your 18-year-old Kyle Rittenhouse does not understand the whole concept of cause and effect. And the reason why he doesn't understand the concept of cause and effect is basically because he did not have a father in the home to teach him basic male life skills. Because if he were to have had his father in the home, his father would not have allowed him to go outside of his home to another state with a loaded firearm to defend somebody else's property. No responsible parent would allow their child to be out here looking to so-called protect other people's property when they have no training and have not been deputized by official law enforcement. And the great irony here is that your Kyle Rittenhouse wants other people to be responsible for what they say, but he doesn't want to take responsibility for what he did. That is one of the greatest ironies as related to your Kyle Rittenhouse, is that he's sitting there saying people are hurt him based on what he said, but he never wanted to take responsibility for how he harmed others and by what he did, and how he could have possibly led to other people who were innocent losing their lives had he not gotten control over his weapon. That's the irony here that I find that flies over the head of this little 18-year-old spoiled brat who sits there and says, oh, I want to make people pay for what they said, criticizing me, but I don't want to go out here and reflect on anything that I have done. And the reason why he has not been able to reflect on what he has done is because the white supremacist criminal justice system did not want to hold him accountable, one. And two, many of these enablers who are white supremacists want to justify his behavior and try to give him a pass for acting in an irresponsible, reckless, and egregious way. Now, I find it interesting that your Kyle Rittenhouse, again, is sitting here filing a bunch of lawsuits and thinking that this is going to be a positive course of action. Now, when I look at your Kyle Rittenhouse, I see his final fate being a very dark one because what oftentimes with your white supremacists, they love to go out here and celebrate a little weasel like him or a George Zimmerman or a Bernard Goetz or any of these other guys who like to go out here and take out a weapon and say it's self-defense. But after the media circus is over, what happens is all of those men wind up falling into obscurity because once the white supremacists get their entertainment value out of these individuals and get their big media circus to promote their far right talking points, what they do is abandon this individual to wind up wallowing in poverty. Because that was the final fate that befell George Zimmerman before him, and it was also the final fate that befell the two murderers who took the life of Emmett Till and then went out here and bragged about taking the life of Emmett Till. Once the white media and white supremacists got their media circus done, they practically led to these men falling into obscurity. Now, if your Kyle Rittenhouse is so desperate, because what happens is that these guys get desperate for money because they realize that they've practically painted themselves into a corner. Your Kyle Rittenhouse, like the murderers of Emmett Till, as I see it, is possibly going to become unemployable because nobody wants to go out here and hire a person who is basically a loose cannon. That's the reason why George Zimmerman is unemployable and practically is scraping by right now, is both men, they went out here and participated in actions that showed employers they were loose cannons, so now they're scraping and scavenging to try to find a way to make a living. Because with his damaged reputation, your Kyle Rittenhouse is trying to scavenge some money and trying to grift his way to making some sort of living because now he's practically destroyed his reputation, and with a destroyed reputation, he's trying to go out here and trying to blame others for the actions that he took and trying to hope that he'll get some out-of-court settlements that will allow him to possibly be able to pay his rent in the future. Unfortunately, he doesn't have much of a case as related to so-called slander and libel, and I believe that his cases against people like Lebron James, Whoopi Goldberg, Joe Biden, media outlets like The View, these are not going to be any cases that are going to have much merit because, again, we live in a nation where there is free speech, and in a nation where there is free speech, people are allowed to say their opinions, and an opinion is not something that can malign somebody's reputation. No, in order to prove maligning somebody's reputation, you have to show malice of forethought, and you have to show that the person deliberately knew that this person had not participated in whatever act was alleged. So when I look at a lot of news reports, they oftentimes use the word alleged, and others went out here, they use the word alleged, and that practically makes it where that case would be dismissed, and you, again, can't sue somebody for having an opinion, and you can't sue a media outlet for reporting journalism. So many of your cases that your Kyle Rittenhouse is filing are going to be just tossed in the trash, and many of the judges are going to dismiss them because they have no merit. Now, the only person who's going to make a lot of money as related to things would possibly be the lawyer dumb enough to try to file these cases. He'll probably get a lot of billable hours out of filing all of these civil suits, but he probably won't get paid because there won't be much money that Kyle Rittenhouse will be able to make. Now, a critical question I have to ask is, whatever happened to that $2 million bail fund that your Kyle Rittenhouse had? Because once he posted bail, all of that money was supposed to go back to someone, and it looks like it didn't go back to Kyle Rittenhouse. It looks back like it went either to the lawyers or it went back to donors like Ricky Schroeder. And I have to wonder, if Kyle Rittenhouse is so hard up for cash, why doesn't he go to his homeboys in Congress who offered him an internship and ask for that internship? Or why doesn't he go to guys like your Mike Lindell from MyPillow or Ricky Schroeder for a job? That's the critical question I have to ask as related to these white supremacists who stood by your Kyle Rittenhouse. Why aren't they standing up for their boy now that he's out here filing civil lawsuits to ensure that he has a way to make a living? And the answer to that is that it's not optically a good look for them anymore, and they cannot get any sort of articles written or drawn or developed about them, or video or films made about them, or TV reports made about them. And since the news cycle is over for your washed up Kyle Rittenhouse, they have moved on. Unfortunately, your Kyle Rittenhouse finds himself in a place where he can't move on, similar to the same dead-end spot many other racist killers found themselves after they got their freedom. They found out they weren't very free because many of the same white supremacists did not want to support them at all. And because those white supremacists did not want to support them at all, what happened was many of these guys wound up falling back into poverty, like your George Zimmerman and like your Kyle Rittenhouse, because once white supremacy uses a tool, it usually breaks a tool or it just discards it, like in the case of many of these white supremacists like your George Zimmerman, your Bernard Goetz, and many others. Once white supremacy gets through using that tool to push its narratives, it forgets that tool exists, and then they leave that tool to fall apart and break. And that's what they're doing with 18-year-old Kyle Rittenhouse, who we will probably be hearing about at the local welfare office, or possibly he'll be somewhere begging for change. Now, if you want to see me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. And if you want to pick up some of my books on the SJS Direct imprint, like the ISIS series, the E-Steam series, the John Haynes series, and the books of the Spinsterella trilogy, you can find those books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find them on Smashwords, the iBook Store, and Google Play. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and Kindle, All About Marilyn. Learn all about the struggles of a faded former teen sitcom star in this absolutely fabulous 5-star screenplay. Get All About Marilyn in paperback and Kindle on Amazon.com today.